Hi, I'm Varun Haran. I'm Senior Editor with Information Security Media Group. I have the pleasure today of speaking with Stephen Desal, who is Senior Director for Mandiant in Southeast Asia. And we're going to be discussing the current threat landscape, what Stephen is seeing as an expert right at the head of some of these disclosures that FireEye is making, and also incident response, how to approach it correctly, how to time your incident response action correctly, and why that is important. Hi, Stephen. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Stephen, like I said, before we get into incident response, we need to set a bit of context. So you're right at the coal phase. You're seeing so much of intel coming through your pipes, right? So what are you seeing going on? What does the contemporary threat landscape look like?
So the threat landscape continues to evolve. It was not something unusual. We expected that to happen, but the evolution has had. The metrics kind of shows very different aspects to it. Attackers still go undetected for a very long time across the organization. Our global average is about 101 days before organizations identify that a threat actor has been in their environment. This is just identification, not even action. Surprisingly, in Asia Pacific, that number goes to as high as 498 days before a threat actor is even detected. We see a lot of repeated infections, repeated targeting by threat actors. And while the numbers are close to about 44 or 47% for America and Europe, where attackers have retargeted organizations that had a breach in the past, that number goes up to 91% in Asia Pacific. So, the evolution of the threat landscape's been very, different in different geographies.
Right. So I think what you're suggesting is that with these reinfections, it shows that organizations perhaps haven't properly remediated those issues and those gaps and have taken maybe a tactical whack-a-mole kind of an approach, like you said before. So what are some myths that organizations deal with when they look at incident response? What are they getting wrong?
It's a very, very nice observation that you made, especially with, not being prepared and not acting on that and being very tactical. A lot of the times, organizations feel that they may not be targeted. I think just that awareness that breaches are inevitable. If a threat actor decides to go after you because you have valuable information, the threat actor will target you, right? You don't have to be like a number one brand, for actors to go after you. There is enough evidence in the recent past to highlight that. The second is when incidents happen, the common misconception is that there would be alarms going off, it would be very visible. The threat actors, they are very, very cautious, right? Because they want to be silent. They want to have those 100 days within your environment. They want to learn your environment. They understand that you have processes that are different, and for them to be effective, right, they need that dwell time in your environment, right? So organizations that are not looking for a threat actor are not going to find them. They're not going to be suddenly visible. The third thing, and which I think is one of the most important aspects, is a lot of people expect threat actors to land on the service, right, on the critical infrastructure. The reality is threat actors are targeting, the front line, the unsuspecting employee, the endpoint. That is where a lot of the action is. Threat actors are going to spearfish with very well-crafted emails to very targeted individuals. They're going to exploit unsuspecting employees' trust, and then from there pivot into the environment to other parts of the infrastructure, to the weakest points, and then move across your organization. And that is how they leverage the time that they have in your organization. So those are the key three things to take away. Breaches are inevitable. Be aware of the threats that affect your industry, that are affecting in your region. The second is to make sure that you are looking for the threat actor. If you're not looking, these threat actors are not the noisy ones. They're going to be very, very silent. Although there are a few that would be disruptive. The third is have a focus on where the threat actors are going to get in from. and start focusing on securing your end user devices.
So I think there's a lot of talk around how attribution is not very feasible in cybersecurity. But how important would you say attribution is, and what role does it play when you start to plan out your response?
Well, there's a lot of naysayers in the market as well who say, well, does it matter who's targeting you? The reality is it does. But when you can get good attribution takes time. It's dependent on threat actor behavior, the tools, the infrastructure that they utilize, the motivations. That details, when you are aware of that, is a huge decisional advantage. We've dealt with breaches where the executive team has recalibrated their response strategy once they were aware that they were dealing with a nation-state threat actor who was trying to steal information and be persistent in their environment. And they realized that they were dealing with an entity that had resources that were not, like someone in the basement trying to get into your environment, but someone who is making a concerted effort to stay there and to access your information continually. So attribution definitely is a decisional tool, but getting the right attribution, that's the key.
So let's get into specifics of incident response.
Sure.
Specifically in terms of what are the right incident response actions, the cadence for those, the order in which you should do them, and how does the timing matter of your incident response actions?
Typically, when you do see attacker activity on your infrastructure, you are tempted to act right away. And the right away action is more about, is what we call more tactical, more whack-a-mole, right? Get the machine offline, reinstall the machine, not really spend time investigating. But if you do find, the threat actor, and you have the benefit of understanding the threat actor behavior, some of the indicators, the threat actor is moved within your environment, you have to be able to scope that enterprise-wide. Because what that allows you is the option to do remediation, to get control of your environment in one sweeping move. Right? Now, if you don't do it that way, you're going to, tactically have a much longer remediation cycle. You would be tipping off the attacker, which gets the attacker smarter about, that he's making mistakes, and you need to, the attacker needs to change their TDPs, because at the end of the day, that's their mission objective, right? So it's important to identify the nature of the incident, the breadth and scope of the incident, and then plan your remediation, because you need to have the right visibility, and then you have to have one fleet, sweeping move to cut off the attacker from your environment and regain control. Now, that for organizations that have planned for this and have done exercises in terms of breach response, tabletops with executives, more detailed exercises with your security team, would be able to understand that this whole exercise could be a matter of a few days to a matter of a few weeks if you've planned.
All right. So essentially, too soon and you tip the attacker off?
Too late and the attackers either gone silent, or the attackers completed the mission, or the attacker has buried down that it's hard to maintain visibility of the attacker. So when you do find that initial view, you have visibility of the attacker, you have an advantage, and you have to use it well.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Stephen, for that insight.
It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you. So that's Stephen Desai, who is Senior Director for Mandiant in Southeast Asia. For ISMG, this is Varun Haran. Thanks for watching.